Okay, and I next have the honor of introducing Mariangelica Forero. And man, I was so grateful to meet you and um, just blown away actually um, by the addition of what you offer as being something that is just so helpful to my clients. So thanks for making the time to be here with us. And I want to just jump in because people might be hopping in and out and do a quick introduction to the summit again. I'm Julianne Pena. I am the founder and facilitator of this summit. I'm a stage 3 cancer survivor while I was leading my business. And at the time, I found support groups kind of in one corner, and there was also medical advice in another corner. But there really wasn't much in the way of business advice on how to navigate running your business while you were in treatment or even in recovery. And nobody at all who was talking about bringing those pieces together. So my diagnosis really left me wondering, how the heck do we even do this? And as a result, now that cancer is a few years behind me and I'm ready and able, I have created a way for you to get those answers. And in this summit, we're covering business, lifestyle, and health. And it turns out that even though I was thinking that we were going to organize people according to their separate little buckets, that's not how it worked, even for my speakers. So, and even for organizing the days. But I am proud to announce our next speaker, who is Mariangelica Forero. She is a coach who helps CEOs drop the baggage and move towards abundance and achieving their life-changing breakthroughs. What that means in the case of cancer can be a little bit different, but most everybody, whatever challenges it is that they're facing, there's some baggage connected to that. So when I first met you, it was a little bit eye-opening to me to realize how much relevance there really is to health challenges from that mindset and lifestyle piece. So thank you so much for being here. And just to tell a little bit of fun, the way Mariangelica talks about herself, she says when she's not helping entrepreneurs level up, she can be found rereading Harry Potter or drinking her 5th hot chocolate, but actually in real life, probably changing diapers and trying to reason with toddlers. So
Accurate.
it's wonderful to have you here. And thanks for making the time. I guess I wanted to start off by asking how you have seen the work that you do impacting the lives of the entrepreneurs you work with.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the work that I do touches a lot of different areas of life. And I have a few slides that we'll get into a little bit more into the call. But honestly, the biggest impact that I've seen is that people have rewritten past circumstances, and that has taken away the biggest block that they had in their business. So it's a really interesting marriage between what we make mean of past situations, right? Or, a moment in time. And I think with this type of a summit and talking about, that moment that I'm sure everyone can recall of when they got their diagnosis, like what did you make mean of that moment, right? And in the moment, we can't dissect it because we have to go through it, right? And we have to feel all the feels and do the whole thing. But years later, years on the line, a few months later, even if we go back to those moments with maybe a different perspective, what else could we gather from that particular moment? And I think being able to go back in time, revisit these situations, as painful as they were and still are, but be able to extract and look at it like from a fly on the wall or from just like third party perspective. Like, what else can we gather? Can we see the resilience? Can we see the strength? Can we see the patience? All of those things we can't gather in the moment, but being able to work with my clients to extract those things and then show them that they've been able to show up this way in their life before, and therefore they can do it now as they move forward in their business, has been probably the biggest transformation I see.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That must just be so moving for you to see. Do you have any specific stories that you're able to share?
Yeah. I can also just get like into a little bit of an intro if you want. It's up
Sure,
to you.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Let's go there. We can come back later.
Awesome. Yeah. Because I think the stories are kind of like intertwined into how everything came to be, right? I mean, I think nobody just like wakes up one day and is like, I want to be a mindset coach, right? It's something that it kind of comes to you as you see the impact that your words can have on other people. And I think the interesting part about, specifically everyone watching this, video right now in the summit, everyone watching the recording, is that there is a level of impact that you now are capable of having because of your story. And that tends to be shunned to the corner when that story is not common or favorable or fun to talk about. But it's like there is a lot of strength and power in those stories. So, I mean, really, one of the things that I think is really impactful in how we have this message that we want to share with people is that, recently I had a conference that was happening in Puerto Rico. So it's an island, right? It's like far away from me. If anyone doesn't know, I'm in Canada. So it's really far away for me to get there. And, I arrived to the airport and I'm waiting for my baggage to arrive. And there is like baggage coming and I don't see mine. And it's looking, I'm like, okay, there it is. I see it coming. And finally it shows up and I'm like, okay, here it is. And when it gets really close to me, I'm like, it's not mine. So then eventually the siren goes off announcing there is no more baggage. And I don't like, my baggage isn't there. So, usually I would have taken the situation as like, it's an adventure. For the most part, a little frustrating. I am usually traveling to like a resort or a vacation or somewhere where there's going to be like a mimosa or something waiting for me and it's going to like make things better. But in this particular flight, I was actually flying into a conference, right? And in this conference, there was going to be a moment where I had to show up in front of a lot of people on stage. And I had no baggage with me. I had no clothes. I had nothing with me. So it's like 11:35. We're driving back to the hotel. The Uber is taking me to the hotel room. And I'm just like, I can feel myself shaking. Like, this is one of those moments you can like go back in time and be like, yep, I'm reliving it. And they confirmed my baggage was sitting pretty in like Chicago, somewhere I didn't even go to. They just put it on some random plane. And so I rode in this Uber to the hotel, and as I feel myself shaking, I'm like, okay, 12 hours from, basically right now, I have to be on stage in front of 1,000 people and talk about something that I had prepared around one theme. And the theme that I chose to talk about on this particular summit was around helping the audience become aware of the baggage that they carry, to take a few brave steps without it, and maybe let it go. And, I'm supposed to talk about these people about like living in their purpose, right? Like leaving that baggage behind. And here was the universe, God, whatever you believe in, being like, I'm just going to show you you're totally on the right path. Therefore, I'm going to send you a real big sign. And I'm also going to make you learn the lesson and leave literally your baggage behind. So all that to say, there are, a lot of things that come up when, I had to come up on stage, for example, right? There was a lot of shakiness. I don't want to mess up. I didn't put myself together. I had to like run off to Walmart at 4 a.m, like all of the things. And what I really wanted to kind of bring about is that nothing that I was wearing was like the big important thing, right? It wasn't about the clothes that I was wearing. It wasn't about the things that I brought with me to the conference. It wasn't about anything that was in my suitcase, except the message that I felt really, really called to share with people. And that talk landed. It landed with the people that I needed to land with. And, there was tears in the room and everyone was kind of thinking about this idea, because I kind of used the idea of a backpack and how you carry limiting beliefs in a backpack. And what I want to impart in everyone here today is that there is a message, right, that we are all brought to the world to share. And sometimes you fall into the routine of life, right? Maybe as you were sharing earlier, like you fall into a 9 to 5 and you're doing the thing. And then life gets shaken up. You get a little bit of a wake up call. And then you're like, whoa, like, what am I actually here for? Like, is that really what I want to go back to? And you just shared about it in the previous speaker, but there is that moment when we have to kind of ask ourselves, like, what is my purpose? Like, what am I here to do? When we kind of take the brakes on and we're just like, hold up, like, what am I actually doing with my life? And that purpose that we have, like, really gets weighed down, right, by the limiting beliefs that we carry. And that impact is what I'm super excited to like pull out of my clients, because it's there, everyone has it. It's just sometimes we haven't been shaken enough, and sometimes we've been shaking too hard and we're afraid to do anything else because we just want to like ride the wave and just, I'm happy to be here, and we become complacent, right? With a lot of things, we settle. So that's one of the things that happened most recently that I felt like really ties into the message of like why it's so important to really dig into that purpose and the impact that we're here to make. Because it doesn't matter what we look like. It doesn't matter, what shoes we walk in. It doesn't matter what your home looks like, what your, bank account looks like. It doesn't matter if you have hair, if you don't have hair. It doesn't matter if you have one leg or two legs. Like, it really doesn't matter. It's the message that you're here to bring. And that is your gift to the world. Your purpose and mission is your gift to the world. So, only really we know what's blocking it, right? Like, what's blocking yours. I know what's blocking mine. And some of us don't really realize like what we've been carrying all this time. And it really is about trying to follow that assignment that we've been given.
Yeah. But you're right. Sometimes it is hard. And maybe it's because we're so caught up in, what we're trying to get through. um,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, I guess I'm curious to hear your presentation. You mentioned some slides. So
Sure. Yeah. I
want to
can,
go there?
I can bring up the slides. Let me just
Okay.
share this. And just let me know if you can see them. You can see them, that's great. Can't. Yeah, okay, cool. So I kind of got into it a little bit already, and so I'm gonna like fast forward through some of these like photos, but here's just like, so you can live it with me. This is my little actual intro that I totally like skipped right over because I get too excited to talk about this stuff. But yes, as Julianne said, my wife, I'm a mother of three little boys. They're 4, 2, and 10 months old. And I am currently a coach to 72 business owners inside of a membership that I call the Honest CEO Academy. And one of the main things that like I think I have leaned more into, and I think the things I encourage my clients to really get into, is storytelling, right? So that's one of the things that I really lean into. As you can tell, like there's stories everywhere, and there's things that we can pull from our own stories. But reflecting is important. And this is often not on my slides, but it felt important to share here that I am the daughter of a dad that currently is going through cancer, and is something that is very close and dear to my heart. So it was not a surprise. It was kind of like a random thing. This was not something like I really, the way we kind of got connected was so interesting. It had nothing to do with this connection. But then when this came up, I was like, whoa, like I'm going through it right this moment as not someone with cancer, but experiencing that and being that caregiver to my dad. So here are the luggage. This is me leaving, right, to Puerto Rico. Super excited. This is me when I found out my luggage didn't arrive. Just being honest, is what it looked like. No, there were tears. It was like the whole disaster. And this was the talk that, I really wanted to kind of put together for the event. I had already prepped it. And so it was kind of felt like the universe was sending me a few signs, and that the universe wanted me to get the message too. So this was me riding in the Uber really, really late at night, sleeping 4.5 hours to get to Walmart to try to put myself together in some form of fashion. But then, I was a shaking mess, like I shared right before that talk. And but the talk went fine. And I was able to put myself together. Walmart, literally walking advertisement for it in this moment, but it worked out okay. And this was kind of the message that I, really kind of wanted to bring about with this whole story, is that your purpose is being weighed down by the limiting beliefs that we all carry. And that is because it has been shoved to the corner. It's been shoved way deep down. And sometimes we just need a little bit of like, the earth being shaken a little bit so we can see what's lying under there. So this message of your purpose and mission is your gift to the world is truly what I believe every single person here and in the world has to offer. There is something inside of you. And maybe that is something you're bringing about with your business. And maybe that's something you're bringing about in community events that you're a part of or volunteering with now. Or there is something now that you're like, almost feel like you've woken up to it. And that whatever that feeling is, whatever that thing is for you, for Julianne, is this incredible community that she has like put together, is bringing a change to this world, right? It is bringing community together and it's making people feel less alone. So I have a podcast that I'm going to like tell you more about at the end, because I'm going to do like a little moment for you and it's going to be really, really beautiful. So just wait for that one. And then I'm going to just stop sharing slides for a moment and just kind of get a little bit back into just one more kind of story that I want to share in terms of how all of this came about for me and why it's important to talk about mindset when it comes to business, because business strategy, we can go on about all day, right? We can talk about the Instagram strategy. We can talk about how to connect with people in DMs on Facebook. We can talk about ads. We can talk about anything business related, and it's for sure going to land at some point. But if deep down, there is something inside of you that's saying like, I don't know if I can really do this. I don't know if this is really for me. I don't know if I really have what it takes. Then you are going to self-sabotage your way right out of it, right? So there is just no point starting there if we have not addressed like the underlying mindset blocks that we all have. And one of the things I'll share is, because it relates to this packing thing, is that, I'm 33 years old today, right now, and I have moved over 25 times in my life. Moving a ton of times all over the world has taught me a lot. And it's taught me a lesson like I never set out to learn, which is packing. I'm actually really good at packing. Obviously not my carry-on, but in general, right? Most of us, when we get to pack, it's like a pretty consistent thing we do. So everyone follows a similar process. You look at the stuff that you own. You Mary Kondo your way into like, do they give me joy or not? You decide what comes with you to your new home, and you decide what you leave behind, right? And there will inevitably come a time when you will like look at an item and you're going to be like, when did I buy this? Like, who gave me this? And why do I still have this? And it's easier when you're packing and you're putting things away to let go of items, because they're physical, they're easy to see. You can see it and you can make a decision about keeping it or not. But there is something that you've been carrying, and we've all been carrying, that we've been consciously or subconsciously packing like over and over and over again. And you may not even realize you've packed it, all the way to your chair today and all the way to the summit. And you literally carry it everywhere you go. Moving that many times, obviously, like there's many ways to be looked at. As a child, I could have looked at it as, I'm a victim of, my family's just unlucky and I've been robbed of these experiences of being close to family and having friends since preschool and all like the more beautiful parts of childhood. But I could also look at it like that I've been given this adventure of a life, right? Where I've gotten to see new faces, like meet new places, move around, learn new languages, because the facts don't change, right? I still moved. The facts of your situation, the facts of, what happened to you when you were 11, the facts of what happened to you that time you went to the doctor, that didn't change. That doesn't change. But the narrative that we give to that situation and the circumstance, like I mentioned earlier, is a choice. And everyone here in the summit, anyone watching the recording, right, has been through a difficult time. That's why we're all gathering together. There has been something that has brought you together because you've been through something pretty tough, and that journey doesn't change. You still went through what you went through. But what you make mean of that moment can change, and we can go back and rework what that means for you in your life. And I ask you, to kind of think and ponder on like, what are you still carrying? Because there is something that you've chosen to put in your backpack, and maybe you're like, I'll look at it later. And then we like never look at it. And we just keep adding things, right? We keep adding these beliefs, we keep adding these stories, and we don't look at them again. So anyone that is either watching this or here today, honestly, there's a few things that you may be thinking, because we all get into it, especially when like our world gets shaken up a little bit. And that is like, what am I even doing? like trying to run this business, like trying to be successful, trying to do the thing. Like, what am I even doing and why? Like, who do I think I am to think that I can like grow this business, become this successful, or whatever the thinking might be? Or you might be here and you might be like, you know what? I had cancer a really long time ago and I no longer have it. It's never come back. And I kind of feel like maybe I don't belong anymore. Like I can't relate anymore to their struggles because it's been such a long time. Like maybe they feel like I shouldn't be here because I've been okay for so long, right? Or maybe you've been comparing yourself to other people, other business owners in general, right? They either have like more of a presence, they can speak better than you, they are louder, they know how to use their story better, they got their branding on point, like whatever it is, they have it and you don't. And the other thing too is that like maybe someone watching today, and you know, I'm sure there's many variants of people within your community, Julianne, but you know, some people I'm sure are at a place right now where all they can focus on is their diagnosis, where it's really hard to see anything beyond that. And anything that talks about the future is just hard to even talk about or envision. And you might be here like seemingly like a shell of who you used to be, longing for this maybe to spark you to feel something. And that's okay and incredibly valid. Like all of those thoughts and feelings are valid, but they are showing up because we've been carrying a belief and because we've been sharing and carrying a story, right, for many years probably. And sometimes it's a story that like wasn't even yours to carry in the first place. So for me, you know, one of our many moves, we moved many times, I said, one of the moves we did that was the most, I think, impactful for me at a young age was we moved to a refugee shelter in Canada and we lived there for 6 months. And as I packed what my mom told me to pack, which was a backpack, that was all I was allowed to bring to the shelter, I try to fit everything that I loved into this like tiny backpack. I wondered like, how is the lightest backpack and thing I have ever packed in my whole life feel so heavy? Like what else is in this bag that I cannot see, but weighs a ton of bricks? What is in this bag that even as a child hunched my shoulders and literally made me shrink? Unaware, obviously, even at 12 years old, that I subconsciously and also consciously packed a lot of stories and limiting beliefs within this bag. I packed stories about how I was not worthy of belonging because every time I got somewhere and felt comfortable enough, we had to move somewhere else. And I wonder what story you are still carrying to this day, because it might be there from like when you were a child. And those stories are a narrative, right? We tell ourselves, and that's a choice. We can choose what we want to keep writing. So we can choose to keep writing the story of how I don't belong anywhere, or we can choose to just stop carrying this story altogether. And these limiting beliefs we keep talking about, they are littered like all over your story. They're everywhere there. And limiting beliefs is like a pretty hot term, but I like to also call them limiting decisions, because at some point you consciously or subconsciously made a decision to carry them. And you've been showing up to life as a partner, as a parent, as a business owner, as someone going to work and trying to do their side hustle and all of these things with this thing on your back the whole time. And that's incredibly exhausting. And worse, like it really only gets heavier as we continue to find these like ways of reinforcing that the story is true. So like something else may happen in your life and you're like, well, that makes sense because I'm always this. Or like something else might happen and you're like, yep, well, you know, I'm a forgetful mess. So like, of course this happens to me. And we keep reinforcing and reinforcing the story every single time that something happens because we want it to be true. We don't want to be wrong. And I wonder what it would feel like if maybe you decided to take a few brave steps without the backpack. Like, what if you just put it down, just felt what it felt like, maybe even for the next couple of days of the summit, you decided to feel like, what would it be like to show up to the sessions or watch these recordings without this thing on my back? Like, because the other option is just to carry it and to continue to carry it and like clutch it tightly and never let it go. But if you continue to carry the belief that you are not worthy, you are going to, like I mentioned, continue to self-sabotage your way. And any action you take following the summit or any action you want to take following the summit you will self-sabotage your way out of it. And if you continue to believe that, that you have this feeling inside of you that you're not enough, then no offer, no new beginning, no routine or anything that you want to create following the summit is going to ever be enough for you. You're going to tweak it and tweak it and tweak it, and you might never even launch the thing, start the thing, or do the thing. And if you continue to carry the belief, like I did, that you are not worthy of belonging, then you may not even dare open the door to rooms where your voice is needed and valued. Like I mentioned earlier, everyone here has a story that can impact someone else. But until you believe that you're worthy of being in that room, you're not going to share it. So I subconsciously chose to believe that I don't belong anywhere because I've moved so many times, because I can't check one single box when someone asks me where I'm from, because I stutter and I stumble when people say, hey, where are you from? Because even the language I'm speaking to you in is not my native tongue. And because I'm a Latina and I rarely see women like me anyways in the spaces that I want to be in. And so who am I to think that I belong there? And carrying this story meant that even that talk that I talked about in Puerto Rico, I had to apply for that. And even applying for that was a huge mental game and challenge. And I think everyone can relate to seeing a goal that they want and having to talk themselves into it for days and having to really have these hard battles with their inner critic to be like, no, it's safe. I'm sure it'll be fine. What's there to lose? And we spend so much mental energy, literally trying to convince ourselves that applying for the thing is okay. And that is a lot of wasted energy on something that, we could just do because we lose nothing by trying. And honestly, during this particular summit, I've seen the titles of a lot of the speakers that are coming up in the next few days. And it looks like I'm just really happy with how beautifully intentional it has just been laid out, because it really has the capacity to allow anyone at the summit really truly to change their life. And it can be a moment that they can look back on and be like, because when I went to that thing in 2023, this happened for me, or this shifted for me, and now I am blank. And that shift can happen if you allow it to, but you have to make room for it. You have to take the backpack off, right? It's your decision if you want to keep carrying the backpack after the summit. And it's your decision if you want to actually decide that you're not going to carry it anymore, or at least you're going to practice taking it off. And many people that either have been through this kind of a situation or have a family member who has a lot of similar feelings and things that we're thinking. And there's a lot of things deep down that you're carrying that you feel like you're the only person carrying. And that's why communities like these are very important, because you realize that you're not alone in those feelings. But that doesn't mean that you're not going to then go later at night and put your head on the pillow and feel bad for yourself. So there are a lot of elements to how we start to remove the backpack. It's not a one day okay, cool, see you later. No, you've been having it your whole life. It's going to be a little bit of, you're going to have separation anxiety from that feeling. You're going to have a lot of feelings that come with not having that with you anymore. But the amount of room that you can make to the transformation that can happen through, whether it's mindset coaching, one-on-one coaching, doing things like attending things like this summit, these are the ways you're allowing a little bit more of that into your life. So I wonder if for the rest of the summit, everyone could do a little exercise for themselves and just see what it looks like to attend at least maybe the next 2 sessions without it. What if you showed up different, whether it's in the chat or whether it's as you're watching the session or whether it's even as you carry your body during your day today? Because you have that opportunity and we're all super excited for you to have that opportunity, but you're the one that decides when that happens, right? It starts by taking messy action. One thing, Julianne has been very specific about how we got to break it into one thing. What is the one thing you're going to take away from this talk? What is the one thing you're going to take away from the summit? So how can you pick that one thing and just see what it feels like to do it and see what it feels like to do it without the backpack? It starts with really believing that there is room in there for change, and that the way that you've been wired is not the way you have to continue to live your life if you're not happy with the way that you've been living it. Knowing that you don't have to carry this alone, obviously, is an incredible gift that this community has for one another, but it is something for you to decide if there's ever anything you want to go into and dive deeper. But that only comes with acknowledging that we're carrying something to begin with. And, honestly, I just want to acknowledge everyone here and everyone that's a part of this community has been through so much, and you are amazing, obviously. But there are moments in time that that's not going to feel real and that that's not going to feel true. And I'm sure, you have your people, like the people that are like in your life that may not get it. Like they might not get why you've been through what you've been through and you still want to achieve and like reach for your dreams. Like they might be like, but you've already done so much. You're amazing. Like, look at all the things you've been through and look how much you've done. Like you're good where you're at, and it's for themselves. They want to like protect you. They want to make you feel like you're good where you are. You don't have to reach for this really big goal you have. Like, it's okay. Like you've already done so much. But I know that deep inside, maybe some of you, maybe all of you, there is a dream that is bigger than they know. And there is a calling, right, that leads to an impact that I don't even think you realize. So in those times, when you feel doubt, when you're, questioning yourself, I found, in my life, that's come up many times, right? There's been many times that I've like held back or like doubted myself from doing something. And overall, there's a lot of voices around us, right? There's like partners, there's siblings, there's parents, there's like so many people that have an opinion on your life, but only one person's opinion matters. And I know you're going to be like, yeah, she's going to say my own opinion. Yes, but I'm going to take it a step further and say, I think the only opinion that should matter is future you's version, future you's opinion, because that person has already been through the stuff. That person has a lot of wisdom. That person has lived your life and is beyond where you are. That person's opinion matters a lot. And I mentioned my podcast. So the podcast I have is called Honestly Becoming. And it's pretty easy. It's 5 minutes a day. I don't have time capacity. I have 3 kids. Like I don't have capacity to record these 45-minute long episodes. I don't know who anybody does that, but 5 minutes a day. But I recently started a series because this is something that has come up a lot with my clients, that is called, or the episodes start with Future You is Calling. And that's because I wanted to have a moment to speak directly to like a problem or a situation that they were going through from the perspective of their future selves. So in that way, and because of, the summit, I actually went ahead and I wrote up a more custom episode for you all. And I wanted to share it with you. I haven't published it out into the podcast. I will, so that you can all go back and re-listen to it anytime you're feeling the feels. But I'm just going to encourage you, if you feel like it's safe for you to do so, to close your eyes for this one and to just really take a deep breath. And I'm going to speak to you from the place of your future self. And so for that, I want you to really envision that future version of you. That version that is healthy, that is thriving, one that is at peace with who they are. They know what they've been through. Take a moment to just visualize that person. And I need you to believe them to be real. I'm going to read you some words that I wrote specifically for you. And I'm going to speak for them as if these words are coming from your future self. So future self is going to talk to you. You might be sitting on a couch with them. They might be calling you on the phone. Really envision where you are when you are having this conversation with your future self. So I'm just going to wait a couple seconds before I start so you can get really clear on what you're visualizing. Okay. Hey there, it's your future self. And I'm here to tell you some things. Things are looking pretty amazing. Yep, they really are. More than that, your business is thriving beyond your wildest dreams. You're making a real difference in people's lives every single day. And that is something to be truly proud of. I know that today might be tough. You might be feeling overwhelmed or uncertain about what the road ahead even looks like. But I am here to tell you that every step that you are taking right now, every hardship and challenge that you are facing, it is all part of a much bigger plan. Trust in yourself and your journey. And know that every struggle that you overcome is preparing you for the success that is waiting just around the corner. I remember all too well how it felt to be in your shoes and how each obstacle seemed Like there was no way you could get through it. But you are stronger than you give yourself credit for. And you have the power within you to push through anything that comes your way. I am proof of that. I made it. And so you will too. The best part of where you are now is that you are able to use your experience to inspire and impact others. You're able to help people who might be going through some of the same challenges that you did. And you're going to show them that there is a way forward. Your story is one of resilience and triumph, and it's a story that needs to be shared. So keep going, my friend. Keep pushing forward, even when it's tough. Keep learning and growing, and always stay true to you and stay true to your vision. You are destined for greatness, and you're already well on your way. With love and admiration, your future self. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. Beautiful. That's the main kind of message I wanted to leave you with, that kind of like conversation with yourself. It's not just about saying that everything happens for a reason and we're supposed to be throwing toxic positivity at everything. It's more about just knowing that we're at any point able to look at things from a new perspective, especially after it's happened, right? And if we're willing ourselves to it, we can extract a lot of gold from it. It's a process that I love, I truly do love, and I'm obviously so passionate about, coaching my clients through, but it's something that is so personal that it's that one-on-one feel that really like speaks to their story. So I've coached them through this process, and I've turned a couple of them into some journal prompts. So I'm just going to share them on screen now, and then we will have a little chit chat afterwards. But the very first journal prompt is what happened? And I want you to pick one singular moment. And that is because obviously when we say what happened, we get into a whole spiel. But I want you to pick one moment that we're going to dissect and go back to. And again, if you feel safe to do this on your own, do it. If you feel like you are getting way too anxious about doing this exercise, I recommend doing it with a professional counselor with you. You can always bring this to your counseling practice or do it with a certified coach, please. So that is what happened. And you pick that singular moment that you want to dissect. Next, you're going to ask yourself, what story did I tell myself about what this moment said about me, my capabilities, or my life? In that moment, what did you make mean about yourself? And then you're going to ask yourself, what belief was created or maybe cemented, because maybe you already had the belief, but it became real that day because of the narrative that you chose back then. So that belief, we're trying to extract, what was that belief that we decided to like cling on to and throw in our backpacks? If I had to, so if you were forced to, right, you're going to fail an exam if you don't do this. If you had to extract one positive lesson from that moment, what would it be? This can be one of the hardest questions to answer, especially depending on what kind of a moment you're going back to. But if you really try to pull out a positive lesson, right? Not how happy you were, it's a lesson that you can extract from this, there's a lot of gold here. And what is something empowering or positive that this could mean instead? So that moment, how can we actually make it mean something completely different? What if we take a moment where we felt like our weakest and we turn it into the moments where we saw the strength of our resilience? There is a whole narrative shift that happens when we do that. And what positive, specifically, belief do I choose to believe today instead? So that belief that you took from there, that you cemented, that you throw in your backpack, what if we take it out, we reanalyze it, and we actually choose to believe something positive instead? That's everything I have for you today. If you want to connect with me, I live on Instagram. That's where I am all the time. So please just like send me a DM. I love voice notes and connecting with people, especially when I've done these kind of, shares or connection points with people, because I know that we've touched on a lot of like really impactful moments, for you. And if there's anything that came up, if there was ever like an aha moment you wanted to share with me, I'm happy to like get into it over voice notes in the DMs on Instagram. You're always welcome to email me, of course. And I will have that recording of that particular episode that I created for you guys on the podcast soon. Maybe I'll just let Julianne's team know when it's up so y'all can know. But the free gift is a free affirmation and manifestation prompt calendar that I send out every month. So this calendar essentially just comes out on the first of every month. It hits your email inbox, and a lot of people set it up as like their desktop backgrounds. And there's a lot of prompts. There's a lot of journal, kind of prompts, kind of similar to what I just shared. And some affirmations for you to kind of take what you need, leave what you don't, kind of thing, and just have it always visible and top of mind. But thank you so much for your time. I am so happy to get into any questions or conversations, anything that's come up, while you heard the talk, Julianne, I'm happy to chat about.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Well, there's one thing that I wanted to go back to actually was you mentioned toxic positivity and the "it all happens for a reason" phrase that we hear a lot, and sometimes can be very badly timed. But then it's also, if you go make a reason for it, sometimes it all is possible to make something good come out of, even though it wasn't good in the first place. So I wonder what else you can share, what other thoughts you have on "it all happens for a reason."
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think that, in terms of everything happens for a reason, it's a phrase that I think we throw out to the wind, like very carelessly. And when we're trying to talk about inclusive language and, ways of not, I've talked a lot about in the past around marketing that doesn't hurt, right? And it's really, when it comes down to just being really aware of your audience. And when you truly understand your audience and their pain points, saying things like everything happens for a reason and sharing it in a really pretty quote, right, doesn't make anyone feel good in the moment, because sometimes the trigger that they go back to is so hard for them to go to that they still are unable to piece together what that meaning was. And so what I work with my clients on is not so much saying like it happened for a reason, we'll find the reason at some point. It's more on, let's change the narrative about what it meant for you to go through that. Because you had an experience, right? That is your hard experience. So for a long time for me, I share very openly, which is why I'm open to sharing here, is that I went through 2 miscarriages before I had any of my living kids. And that was a phrase that I remember hearing so many times. And I was like, there is a disconnect in a lot of people's minds about what it means to hear that when you're going through a really hard time. Right? In the moment, I don't want to know any reason. There is no reason that will be sufficient enough for the pain that I am feeling, right? For the sadness that I feel. I cannot, don't make me go there. And so what I work on is actually, instead of trying to find a reason, it's just how can we go back there and see what we can extract? Because if we believe that every moment can teach us something and every moment has a positive lesson to it, then we are able to go back to that moment and see what positive lessons came of it. It might be, wow, I didn't realize how great of a support system I had. Wow, I never realized how much I really needed to cry, and I never had cried before that way in my life, and how liberating and freeing it was. So what lessons can we extract? So it's never for me about what is like the end all be all fate reason of why this happened. It's more about extracting and pulling what we need to extract, and then using that in our present, right? Like, how can that make me stronger today to go back to such a hard moment?
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
There were a couple of thoughts I had as you were talking about some of the negative thoughts that we don't talk about, and that we sometimes may feel like we're the only ones that have them. But I hear them from so many people that I just need to share that in those moments when these thoughts come across your mind, because if you're human, they probably do, so now and then.
Yeah.
But you're not alone if, whether it's because you're dealing with a cancer situation or for some other reason, but that very difficult change that has come into your life, um, it's so common for people to have the thought that this cancer means that I can't dot 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 fill in the
Mhm.
blank. And it may mean truly that the how it happens is a little bit different, um, or exactly what it is that you actually want might shift. But it doesn't have to mean, when you get that bad news, it doesn't have to mean I can't. Um, and then another thought that's very common is to take this bad situation and use it as evidence for a belief that probably came from somewhere else, to start with, but it's a very common belief to say, "Ah, this just shows once again that things don't work out for me,"
Yeah.
um, and that's a thought that nearly everyone has, sometimes quite frequently.
Mhm.
So if you have it too, um, don't feel alone. And just because some things don't work out the way you thought in the first place doesn't mean that nothing ever works out for you. Um, it's amazing what good things can come along as well.
Yeah, it is really amazing. And I think it's what you're saying is also what I want to point out too is that in the moment, you have to feel it. Like in the moment, you have to cry, you have to be sad, you have to just feel what you feel and let it come through your body and not resist it, right? I'm not asking anyone to go through a moment and in that moment try to dissect it and let me go do my journal prompts, see how I feel better. No, don't do that. Right? It's about going back when you feel ready and like you're in a more neutral state to be able to, comfortably go back to those situations. And although it might be a little bit hard to go back to those moments, it's more about knowing that you have the capacity at any moment that you feel ready to do that for yourself.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I don't know if you were looking or if other people had their eyes closed, but there were tears running down my eyes. Because what you had to say really does apply to most anyone. And it might not be a business that you're trying to build, but for a lot of us here, it's probably is kind of connected to a business in some way.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's there I go again. Excuse me. Bumping my camera in the process.
Listen, I'm sorry. Like I know tears, but like there's tears are my compliment. Tears are that something landed.
Yeah,
Tears are that, a
yeah.
message resonated with something. And that's enough for me to know that there is going to be great impact after people listen and hear and absorb. And no matter if it's now, no matter if it's tomorrow, no matter if it's next week, like there is that kind of shaking, those tears are like just confirmation, right? That those words were put in the right order, in a way. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, they definitely had an impact, and I'm sure they'll continue to have ripples. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for coming here today.
No worries.
Um, and here's the
Um,
point. Go ahead.
I saw a question from Adam in the Autumn in the chat. I wasn't sure if that's something I should address, like on.
If it seems like something that you want to take up right now, go ahead. And if not, that's
Sure. Yeah. I
I
mean,
didn't see it, so I can't
no worries.
say.
Yeah. So Autumn just asked, Mariangelica, what are some ways that you have learned to be there to best support your father since his cancer diagnosis? And so that's a beautiful question. And I'm like so glad that you asked. I will say, and I'm going to preface everything by saying that I am continually learning, because, cancer, it's not uncommon for our family. Like grandparents have had it, uncles have had it. It's sadly not a thing that is, the first time, but it is the first time that one of my parents has had it. And so it's really recent. It's actually incredibly recent. So I think one of the best ways so far that I've just learned, to be there for him is when I feel like I know he's my dad. So, your people, your way and their ways of being. I can hear it in his voice when he needs me to be physically present. He does not live with me. He lives on his own, and he lives about an hour and a half away from me. So, it's a very difficult, and I have 3 little kids. So it's a very difficult thing to know when, like, someone is hurting all the way over here, and you have like the want to be there at every beck and call, but physically you're unable to. So I find that what I've been able to do is we've done way more video calls than we ever did before. And I've just seen him light up when, like, my baby is on video with him, right? His grandchildren are there. So it's just finding more times, even though I have like a crazy chaotic life, to put the camera on, even when we're in like the disaster that is dinner time, and have him present with us for dinner. And doing these little kind of virtual things with him has, I can just hear it in his voice when we talk, even like the day later, just really have an uplift like for him. Obviously, aside from the more normal things, like I've had to go and be with him. He had a surgery, and different kinds of things that he's had to go through, and just be there as like the care person for how to change the bandage, how to do this, how to, help with those bits. But I think in the more quiet ways, it's been in including him more into our life, even though he's not physically present, and finding just creative ways of involving him more in the things that we're doing that I know light him up because he is alone. So those are the ways right now. When I feel like he has his energies up, that's when I feel like it's safer for me to ask him, like, hey dad, like, what would help you today, or what would help you tomorrow, or like, next time that I hear you down, like, what's something that would be really fun for you? And those are like little ways, but I don't ever want to put too much of the how do I help you on him. So I think a lot of them comes from, I ask when he looks like he is in a space where he would be able to process that and answer that without it feeling heavy for him. And when I hear him that he's not, it's just including him more, having him be more present, and just little things that I know he appreciates, like getting, groceries delivered or something like that, even though, like, I can't be there, but thankfully there's all these great technology things that you can do now to deliver certain things, right? So those are the ways right now, but I'm always learning. His surgery was only like a week and a half ago. So it's like, we're in the very early stages of how does life look like, yeah, right, with a parent with cancer, but I'll learn more as I go, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a sort of little reference that people can look at to get ideas also. And I probably won't be able to post it anywhere until after the summit. But,
Yeah.
um, there are resources around. But
Mhm.
what I think is the most beautiful thing about that, and the way you just explained it, was kind of how you're tuning in to where he's at a given time, and in choosing the way to help that you think is going to be something that matches where he's at in that moment.
Yeah,
So that's
for sure.
awesome. So many wonderful, wonderful takeaways. I don't even know where to start. I am so glad I have the recording, because I'm definitely going to have to go back to this a few times myself. Um, but one thing that stood out to me that I think I'm going to get first is those journal prompts that you gave at the end. And I'm excited for the calendar as well. And that's just a really helpful thing. And like you kind of said, it's not every day that it's going to be like big for me. Sometimes it'll be just light.
Yeah,
But having that opportunity each day to have a moment of reflection, and then the ones that I'm really ready to work on, um, they'll come along, and I'll be able to really have some real thought about. So thank you for that. It's wonderful to have sort of those takeaways that kind of keep on giving. So
yeah. Thank you so much.
appreciate that
I
gift.
really just appreciate being here and being a part of, in this way of this community. I'd love to, just stay connected, because there's a lot really that I'm just, as I dive more into this world, right?
Yeah.
As a daughter here, there's a lot of need for the work that is being done during this summit. So I'm just really grateful for, allowing me into, this safe space, and hopefully there is just some, little light bulbs that will go off for people. I just want to like shake the earth a little bit. That's all.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and that is one of the gifts of doing this for me is the people that I meet and
Mhm.
um just sort of like being a point where people like you can gather because what you have to offer is tremendous. I'm sure we're all feeling it right now. Um, so just having a place where these kinds of things can come together, it makes me grateful to be doing what I'm doing.
Thank you.
Um, and thank you for also just bringing out how important it is for all of us that our stories have value, and it might be in different ways, um, but to just be willing to share to the extent that we're able to at any given time, knowing that telling your story makes a difference for someone else.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I hope that's something that we can all do for one another.
100%.
Um, yeah. So the link is there on that was shown, and it'll be. I have to make sure I turned on the links for the gifts on the summit page because we didn't want to turn it on too far ahead, and I think I got a little too excited this morning and forgot to get that done. But that's it'll be there, and we just I want everybody who's watching to also give yourself grace because just because something doesn't happen quite in the ideal way doesn't mean anything about you and the value that you have. So, instead of being angry with myself, I'm going to try to model what I try to help people with.
Yes,
And that is, I'm going to just go check and make sure everything's right. And then it'll be right.
exactly. Yeah. And I mean, that's part of it too, right? Like that's why they say coaches need coaches. Like there isn't um we all need it. Like there's so many elements of my life that it's so much easier when you look at somebody else's life and you can dissect it with a client and you're sitting there and it's all about them, right? And then you're seeing the connection points and you're seeing how quickly we can get to a resolution. And then when it's your own life, you're like, yeah, but my mess, like nobody can figure out my mess, right? Like, and it's not true at all, but we do that often, right? We are, I think the majority of people in the world are kind, giving people. And so when you have someone talk to you and they're giving you their 2 cents and they're saying, hey, this is like really hard for me right now, and you're helping them through a problem, it's a lot easier to do that. And then when it comes to you, you're like, yeah, no, nobody can figure this crap out. Like it's just, it becomes a whole bigger thing, right? So I do think that there is value in realizing when we're going to have up days and we're going to have down days. Just like some days I'm like an incredibly frustrated mom, and other times I'm like a really fun mom. It changes.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Awesome.
Wow. Well, again, thank you so much. And I am so glad that you're going to stay connected because I definitely
Yeah.
want to stay connected to you as well.
Yeah.
And
Well, thank you so
looking
much. I
forward
really
to
appreciate it.